Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Tosh here. First, I want to say thank you everybody for all the support on the channel, the comments, the likes, and the subs. Really appreciate it. It does help the channel a lot here, so feel free to subscribe for more content like this. So today I want to talk about how to keep a cooler head in a really tense situation, particularly when you're in an argument with a coworker or maybe fan or customer, depending on what industry you're working. A lot of times you'll have coworkers who maybe don't agree with you on something, or if they think you're trying to do something behind their back, whatever it might be. This happens a lot in corporations. You'll story about this all the time. Coworkers just kind of getting up in your face a little bit, either in person or virtually. And I think we've all been in a situation like this. So I wanted to share some of my experiences and some lessons I have that will help you navigate those situations. I think the first thing to keep in mind, at least for me, when talking to, let's say, like a fan at an event or a coworker, is trying to keep in mind like what the ultimate Uber goal is. And for me, I always think by the end of this altercation, I would like to come out on the other side of this with either a stronger relationship with the person, some sort of mutual understanding, or at the very least, like de-escalate things so they don't go any further. I think it's important to keep in mind where you can, what is kind of the end goal of this conversation that you're having, and what does an ideal outcome and resolution look like? I think without that in mind, it could spiral in different situations. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that it's good to kind of keep your ego in check and say like, hey, I'm not above anybody else here. You need to be respected as a human being, but it shouldn't be coming from a judgmental place of, oh, I have a higher status than this person, or, I'm a higher level, or whatever it is. This person owes me this. They shouldn't be coming to me with this attitude, whatever it might be. I think just like checking all of that stuff at the door is always going to lead to a kind of better outcome in the end. The next thing to note is that you are in full control of your own emotions and feelings. Clearly, if someone's coming after you in an aggressive way, they're kind of unhinged. They can't really control their emotions for one reason or another. That doesn't mean that you have to match their emotions or they can make you feel a certain way. I think it's important to remember that you're in the driver's seat of how you react to everything. Again, if you keep the goal in mind of wanting to come out on the other side of this with some sort of mutual understanding or having to de-escalate things, I think it's important that you're able to keep your emotions in check. I know once in my job, I had someone give me a call and it was pretty aggressive. They were upset about something that I had said to a broader group. They were all but yelling at me on the call, and I just kept my cool. I didn't yell back. I didn't say anything that would kind of escalate them further. I didn't make any like snarky remarks or jokes. I just kind of explained my position and I kept my cool. And the person really quickly realized that they were not the level-headed person in this conversation. And I think honestly it made them feel a little dumb, and they apologized and things like de-escalated really quickly, and we were able to just like move forward, and I was able to understand what this person was so upset about. Typically, if you assume best intent, there's hopefully a good reason, a legitimate reason why people are feeling a certain way. And a lot of times in my experience, it just comes from some misunderstanding or just a lack of communication. The next thing I say is important to keep in mind is focus on what they're saying and not exactly how they are saying it. Obviously, if someone's taking things, to a disrespectful tone to where, just as a person, this doesn't feel like you're able to have a real conversation, like that's kind of a different story. If you're really trying to get to the bottom of this, if you're really trying to, at the end of this, have kind of a mutual understanding, like I mentioned, as best as you can, I know it's easier said than done. As best as you can, think about, okay, why is this person so upset? Where is this all coming from? Try to tease out what are the specific things that they are kind of upset about. And I think if you're able to do that, then you can kind of get to the core of how this person is feeling. And who knows, maybe it's something that, this total misunderstanding. You said something over email, they took it the wrong way, and then you could both, look back and kind of laugh at it because, oh, I didn't mean that at all, or whatever it might be. A lot of times you'll find that there's not a whole lot that's actually going on there. And maybe sometimes people just need to kind of say their piece. So obviously every situation is different, and why people get mad is different. I just want to also be clear about something. Like, I'm not condoning or saying it's okay for people to like totally lose their cool in the workplace, start yelling at others. Like, absolutely not. Like, that is not okay. It's super unprofessional. My point is, like, you have control over how you interact in that agreement, how you show up, and how you come out on the other side of it. And at least in my experience, having a cool level head usually makes you show up the best. As the more mature person, makes the other person feel kind of dumb. I don't want to make this come off as like a, hey, it's okay that people go crazy. Like, no, it's not okay that people go crazy at work. I just want to make sure that was super clear. The last thing I want to mention along those lines is, keep in mind that you're allowed to stick up for yourself. If you feel like someone is crossing the line and being super disrespectful as a coworker, then you should say that. And I've had to say this in the past, like, hey, I understand you're frustrated. However, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel it's not appreciated you speaking to me this way. Let's maybe table this for a later conversation when you're able to gather yourself, whatever you might be. When people have come at me upset, I've even said like, hey, let's catch up on this tomorrow, because I know in the next 24 hours they're going to cool down a bit and we can have a more level-headed conversation. But I want to make sure that's clear, as well as it's not okay for people to cross the barrier and cross the line for really disrespecting you. And I think you should be kind of setting that boundary and that barrier for what you're willing to accept and not accept. And obviously every situation is different. There's different power dynamics at play. So depending on your situation and who's coming at you, you might have to take different routes in terms of how you navigate a situation like this. It's not always easy, let's say, to like someone who has power or authority over you to, just confront them straight up. So, I understand every situation is different, and, you've got to do your best to navigate that. But I also just want to make it clear that like, you don't have to just, and a lot of the tips I'm giving here are ways to like de-escalate and get to the end of it and hopefully have a friendly outcome. But I also understand that like some people are just out for blood and there's not always a nice, peaceful resolution here. And I think sticking up for yourself and letting people know where the boundary is important for yourself. It's also important for everyone around you, including or not including that person who might be right in your face yelling at you about whatever the thing might be. So where the situation calls for it and where you feel comfortable, I think it's important that you establish that. And it doesn't have to be in a way that you're like yelling at the back, hey, don't freaking speak to me that way, or whatever it might be. There's a way that you can show that you don't really stand for it. And I've had to do this with partners on different calls or at events and whatnot. People across the line, there's a polite and calm way that you could say, hey, you've crossed the line here, and here's exactly why, and why I don't feel that's appropriate. Hopefully you don't have to come across situations like this, but I think especially working in a big corporation or a big group, you're bound to run into some people who are kind of unhinged or super emotional about certain things. I think for me, it has always worked out to keep the level-headed perspective in the conversation and kind of take the high road as always. So that's something I truly believe in and try to preach to the team is like, hey, we always take the high road. People throw mud at us like every single day on Twitter as either a company or team or me individually. I could retaliate to everybody and kind of burn everything down if I wanted to. But what's the point? Like, that's not what I'm here to do. And ultimately, I want to try to get to the best outcome with all of these people who are either part of the community or part of the workforce, whatever it might be. So I always try to take the higher road and be the level-headed one in whatever the kind of situation is. So hopefully these tips helped, and hopefully the times that you have to run into people like this is very few and far between. But if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one.